Jake Morrison stepped off the transport ship and looked around at his new home. The planet Kepler 442b stretched out before him, covered in red rocks and gray dust. The air smelled strange, like metal and something he could not name. Above him, two small suns burned in an orange sky. The research camp sat in a valley between tall hills. Jake counted 12 large buildings made of white metal that gleamed in the double sunlight. Tubes and pipes connected the buildings like veins. Everything looked clean and new but cold. "You must be the human dirt expert," a voice said behind him. Jake turned around. A tall figure stood there, nearly 8 feet high. Its body was made of what looked like living crystal, blue and purple colors moving under its skin. The alien had 4 arms and eyes that glowed like tiny stars. "I am Zixthal of the Valorian High Council," the being said. Its voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "I run this facility." "Jake Morrison," Jake replied, holding out his hand. "Agricultural specialist from Earth." Zixthal looked at Jake's hand but did not take it. "Yes, the one who plays in dirt. How quaint." Other aliens gathered around them. Jake saw creatures that looked like giant bugs with too many legs. Their shells were green and black, and they clicked when they moved. Near the buildings, fish-like beings floated in clear water, tanks that moved on wheels. Above them all, balls of light danced in the air, changing colors as they spun. "Welcome to Research Station Alpha," Zixthal said. "Here we conduct real science. We study this world to make it ready for civilization. We use advanced technology, not primitive methods." Jake picked up his 2 bags from the ground. "I look forward to helping with the terraforming project." "Helping?" One of the insect creatures made a sound like laughing. "What can dirt scratching do that our machines cannot? Do better?" "Soil analysis is important for long-term colony success," Jake said. "Plants need good earth to grow. People need food." The ball of light nearest to Jake pulsed red. When it spoke, its voice was like music played too fast. "We have nutrient synthesizers. We make perfect food from base elements. No messy biological processes needed." "The synthesizers work well," Jake agreed, "but natural farming can provide backup food sources and improve soil for future settlements." Zixthal's crystal body flickered with dark colors. "Backup? You think our technology needs backup from digging in dirt?" More aliens came to watch. Jake saw dozens of different species, all looking at him with curiosity or amusement. Some pointed at his simple clothes and basic equipment. Others whispered in languages that sounded like music or wind or water. "The soil here might be different from what your databases show," Jake said. "I would like to study it and see what can grow." "Nothing grows here," said one of the fish creatures. Its tank rolled closer and Jake could see gills moving on its neck. "We scanned everything. This planet has dead dirt, rocks and dust. Nothing more." "Sometimes scans miss things," Jake replied. "I have tools that can check for microbes and minerals that deep scans might not catch." The insect creatures clicked harder and Jake realized they were laughing. "Microbes in dirt," one said. "How amusing. Next you will tell us that mud has feelings." Zixthal raised one of its 4 arms. "Enough. The human can play in dirt if it makes Earth happy. We have real work to do." The alien looked down at Jake. "You may use the empty land behind Waste Processing Unit 7. Try not to disturb actual scientists while you dig." Jake nodded. "Thank you. Where can I find information about soil composition and mineral content?" "In the databanks, though I doubt you will find anything useful. Dr. Lisa Carter from your species can show you. She studies useless biological samples." Zixthal turned to leave, then stopped. "Oh, and human, do not expect the camp to eat whatever weeds you manage to grow. We have standards." The crowd of aliens began to break up, still making sounds that Jake guessed were laughter. As they walked away, he heard comments in broken English mixed with alien words. "Dirt farmer. Stone Age methods. Primitive human foolishness." Jake stood alone in the camp center holding his bags. The weight of their dismissal pressed down on him like the heat from the 2 suns above. He had expected some skepticism, but not open mockery. "Do not let them get to you." Jake turned to see a human woman walking toward him. She had brown hair pulled back in a ponytail and wore the same kind of simple work clothes that he did. Lisa Carter, she said, shaking his hand, xenobiologist. I study alien life forms, which makes me almost as useless as you, according to our hosts. Jake Morrison. I guess I am the dirt expert they mentioned. Lisa smiled. I heard. Want me to show you around? I can give you the real tour, not the official one. As they walked between the buildings, Lisa pointed out the different areas. Those are the Valorian quarters. Very fancy, climate-controlled to match their homeworld. The Kethmari live in those dome structures. They like it warm and humid. The Delphins stay in the aquatic center, and the Luminar do not really live anywhere. They just float around. What about humans? Jake asked. We get the basic housing units near the power plant. Not as nice as the others, but we make do. Lisa stopped walking and looked serious. Jake, I should warn you. The aliens here do not think much of human methods. They see us as backward, especially anything that involves working with natural systems instead of technology. I noticed. It gets worse. Some of the humans here agree with them. Dr. Kevin Barnes runs our engineering team, and he thinks we need to prove we can be just as advanced as the aliens. He does not like anyone who might make us look primitive. Jake looked around at the gleaming buildings and advanced machinery. Everything hummed with power and efficiency. Maybe they are right. This is impressive technology. It is, Lisa agreed. But I have been here for 6 months, and I notice things. Their food synthesizers break down a lot. Supply ships get delayed, and nobody has done any real biological surveys of this planet. They just scanned from orbit and decided nothing important lived here. What do you think lives here? Lisa kicked at the red dirt with her boot. I do not know yet, but this planet has been around for billions of years. Life finds a way even in places that look dead. They reached a small building marked with Earth symbols. This is our lab space, Lisa said. You can set up your equipment here. The area Zixthal mentioned is about a quarter mile that way, past the waste processors. Jake looked in the direction. She pointed. He could see large machines and pipes, and beyond them empty land that looked like a dump. Not the best spot for farming, he said. No, but it is what we have. Lisa put her hand on his shoulder. Jake, I know this seems bad, but do not give up. I think you might find something interesting in that dirt. Something the fancy scanners missed. As the two suns began to set, painting the sky in shades of red and gold, Jake walked toward his assigned plot of land. Behind him, the alien camp buzzed with activity and the hum of advanced machinery. Ahead lay barren ground that everyone said was worthless. Jake knelt down and picked up a handful of the red soil. It felt gritty between his fingers, but there was something else. A slight warmth. A faint smell of something living. He smiled and put the dirt in his pocket. Tomorrow, he would begin to prove them all wrong. Jake spent his first week at the research station studying soil samples and setting up his equipment. Every morning, he walked past the waste processing units to reach his assigned plot of land. The other humans gave him strange looks. The aliens ignored him completely. His small laboratory filled with jars of dirt, testing strips and sample containers. Lisa stopped by each day to see his progress, but Jake had little to show her. The soil tests revealed basic minerals and traces of organic compounds, nothing that seemed special. Any luck? Lisa asked on the 7th day. Jake held up a soil sample that looked like ordinary red dirt. Iron oxide, silicon compounds, some carbon traces. Nothing the orbital scans did. Not already find. The aliens keep asking when you will give up and do real work. Jake looked out the lab window toward his plot. I am doing real work. It just takes time. That afternoon, everything changed. Jake was in the camp cafeteria, eating synthetic protein, paste that tasted like cardboard when Zixthal entered the dining hall. The tall crystal alien commanded attention simply by existing. Conversation stopped as other beings turned to look. Attention, fellow researchers, Zixthal announced. Its voice carried to every corner of the room. I wish to address a matter of scientific methodology. Jake felt eyes turning toward him. He kept eating his paste and tried to look invisible. We have among us a human who believes that digging in dirt can contribute to our terraforming efforts, Zixthal continued. This person thinks that primitive agricultural methods can improve upon our advanced food production systems. The insect, aliens clicked in amusement. The floating light beings pulsed with what Jake had learned was their version of laughter. Even some humans looked embarrassed. Dr. Kevin Barnes, the human engineering chief, spoke up from across the room. Zixthal, please understand that not all human methods represent our species. We have advanced hydroponic systems and synthetic biology techniques that match any galactic standard. Of course, Zixthal replied. Most humans show proper scientific advancement, but this dirt scratcher persists in requesting resources for his primitive experiments. Jake felt heat rising in his cheeks. He stood up slowly, his chair scraping against the floor. I am studying soil composition to establish sustainable food production. That is not primitive. It is practical. Practical? Zixthal's crystal body flickered with amused colors. We have nutrient synthesizers that create perfect food from base elements. We have hydroponic systems that grow plants without soil. What is practical about playing in mud? Backup systems, Jake said. What happens if the synthesizers break down? What happens if supply ships are delayed? One of the fish aliens in its rolling water tank spoke up. Our technology does not break down. Valorian engineering is perfect. Nothing is perfect, Jake replied. Natural systems provide redundancy and sustainability that technology cannot match. The room erupted in clicks, musical tones, and electronic sounds that Jake recognized as alien laughter. Zixthal raised its forearms for silence. Very well, human. You believe your dirt scratching is valuable. I propose a test. Jake felt his stomach drop. What kind of test? You have 30 standard days to prove that your soil farming can contribute meaningfully to camp food production. 30 days to show that digging in dirt can match our advanced systems. That is not enough time to establish proper agricultural cycles, Jake protested. 30 days, Zixthal repeated. If you succeed, humanity gains additional voice in terraforming decisions. If you fail, your species accepts that primitive methods have no place in galactic colonization efforts. Doctor, Barnes stood up quickly. Wait, you cannot speak for all humanity based on one person's experiment. Can I not? Zixthal's eyes glowed brighter. This human claims his methods are superior to ours. Let him prove it, unless Earth lacks confidence in its dirt expert. Jake looked around the room. Every face was turned toward him. The aliens showed amusement and anticipation. Most humans looked worried or embarrassed. Only Lisa met his eyes with encouragement. What are the exact terms? Jake asked. Simple. You will use only the barren land assigned to you. No additional resources beyond what any colonist might reasonably have. No help from synthesizers or hydroponic systems. Pure dirt farming, as you call it. Jake thought about the rocky, chemical-stained ground behind the waste processors. It was the worst possible land for farming, chosen specifically to make him fail. And if I produce food that can feed people? If you can grow enough edible crops to meaningfully contribute to camp nutrition within 30 days, using only soil and primitive methods, I will personally acknowledge the value of human agricultural techniques. The room buzzed with excited conversation. Jake heard aliens placing bets on his failure. Some humans whispered angrily about him embarrassing their species. I accept, Jake said. Zixthal's crystal body flashed with pleased colors. Excellent. Everyone here witnesses this agreement. The human dirt scratcher has 30 days to prove that mud farming can feed a galactic research station. As Jake sat back down, Dr. Barnes leaned over from the next table. Are you insane? You just bet humanity's reputation on growing vegetables in toxic waste runoff. The soil is not toxic, Jake replied. I tested it. It is garbage land. Zixthal gave you the worst possible spot on purpose. Jake pushed his synthetic paste around his plate. Maybe. But I have been studying those soil samples. There might be more there than anyone realizes. After dinner, Jake walked alone to his assigned plot. The area stretched about 1 acre, covered in red dirt and scattered rocks. Chemical stains marked the ground where wastewater had once flowed. Dead-looking shrubs dotted the landscape like tombstones. Lisa found him there an hour later, standing in the middle of the barren field. "This is bad, is it not?" she said. "Pretty bad," Jake agreed, "but not impossible. The whole camp is talking about it. Half the aliens have bet against you. Dr. Barnes is furious. He thinks you are going to make humans look foolish." Jake knelt down and scooped up another handful of dirt. In the fading light of the two suns, it looked lifeless and dead. But he had been studying this soil for a week. He knew things about it that the orbital scanners had missed. "Lisa, what do you know about extremophile bacteria? Organisms that live in harsh conditions. They can survive in places most life cannot. What about symbiotic relationships between bacteria and plant roots?" Lisa sat down on a nearby rock. "Mycorrhizal networks. Fungi and bacteria that help plants absorb nutrients and water. Very important for plant health." Jake smiled and showed her the dirt in his palm. "This soil has been scanned by the best technology in the galaxy. Everyone says it is dead. But I have been looking deeper." "What did you find?" "Signs of life. Dormant but alive. This planet is not as dead as everyone thinks." Ben Taylor, a human maintenance worker, approached from the direction of the waste processing plant. He was a big man with oil-stained coveralls and a friendly face. "Heard about your challenge," and Ben said. "Tough break, getting stuck with this patch of ground." "It could be worse," Jake replied. Ben looked around at the barren landscape and laughed. "How?" "It could be smaller." That night, Jake worked late in his lab, preparing seeds and studying soil samples under his microscope. The other buildings were dark, but light still shone in the main research complex where aliens worked on their important projects. Jake did not mind. He had 30 days to prove that the simplest human knowledge could outperform the galaxy's most advanced technology. 30 days to show that sometimes the old ways were still the best ways. He looked at his collection of earth seeds, carefully chosen for harsh conditions. Potatoes that could grow in poor soil, beans that fixed their own nitrogen, tomatoes bred for rapid growth and high yield. Outside his window, the alien research station hummed with the sound of advanced machinery. Inside his lab, Jake prepared to fight the most important battle of his life with nothing but seeds, dirt, and knowledge passed down from farmers who had never heard of spaceships. The challenge was accepted. Now came the hard part. Jake began his work before dawn on the first official day of the challenge. The twin suns had not yet risen, and the research station slept under alien stars. He carried his tools and seeds to the barren plot behind the waste processing plant. Tiwaim, ground felt cold under his knees as he began digging his first test holes. Every few feet he stopped to collect soil samples in small containers. The work was hard. The dirt was packed tight from years of neglect. "What are you doing out here so early?" Jake looked up to see Ben Taylor walking toward him. The maintenance worker carried a cup of coffee that steamed in the cool morning air. "Getting started," Jake said. "Only 29 days left." Ben sat down on a rock and watched Jake work. "Mind if I ask what you are really doing? I mean, everyone knows this dirt is dead." Jake held up a soil sample. Even in the dim light, Ben could see it was just ordinary red dirt. "Looking for life." "In that? Life finds a way to survive in the strangest places. Sometimes you just have to know how to look for it." Ben sipped his coffee and studied the barren landscape. "You really think you can grow food here?" "I think this planet has surprises that nobody has found yet." As the suns rose, other humans began walking past on their way to work. Some nodded to Jake. Others pretended not to see him. Dr. Barnes walked by with two other engineers talking loudly about proper scientific methods and the embarrassment of primitive techniques. Jake ignored them and kept digging. By midday, he had collected samples from across his entire plot. Each container was labeled with location coordinates and depth measurements. His hands were dirty and his back ached, but he felt more hopeful than he had in days. In his lab that afternoon, Jake began the detailed analysis that would change everything. Under the microscope, the supposedly dead soil revealed its secrets. Tiny organisms moved slowly through the dirt particles. Spores waited in dormant states, ready to spring to life with the right conditions. Root-like structures from long-dead plants still held networks of beneficial fungi. "Lisa, you need to see this," Jake called when his colleague stopped by the lab. Lisa looked through the microscope and gasped. "Those are mycorrhizal networks. They are still alive." "Barely, but yes. And look at this." Jake showed her another slide. Strange bacterial formations clustered around mineral deposits in the soil. "I have never seen anything like this," Lisa said. "These bacteria seem to be processing the iron oxide in the dirt. They are creating some kind of nutrient compound." Jake switched to another sample. "This gets better. The mineral content here is not just iron and silicon. There are trace amounts of rare earth elements, neodymium, europium, terbium. Those are incredibly valuable, and they are being concentrated by these bacterial colonies. Over thousands of years, these microorganisms have been creating the most nutrient-rich soil I have ever seen. It just looks dead because it needs water and organic matter to wake up." Lisa stared at the microscope display. "Does this mean what I think it means?" "It means this barren dirt is actually the best possible growing medium for plants. The orbital scans missed it because they only looked at surface chemistry. They never checked for dormant biological activity." That evening, Jake began preparing his planting beds. He mixed his samples of active soil with compost material he had been making from food scraps. The bacterial colonies began to multiply almost immediately. Ben Taylor appeared again, this time carrying a small shovel. "Thought you might need help," Ben said. "I thought you were staying away from the crazy human and his dirt project." Ben laughed and started digging. "Maybe I am curious about this crazy project. Besides, I fix machines all day. It might be nice to try growing something for a change." They worked together as the sun set, preparing rows for planting. Jake showed Ben how to mix the activated soil with organic matter, how to test for proper pH levels, and how to create the best conditions for seed germination. "This is more complicated than I thought," Ben admitted. "Good farming always is, but once you understand how it works, it becomes simple." Amy Rodriguez, a human communications officer, walked over from the main complex. "Jake, I wanted to let you know that your challenge is big news. The aliens have been talking about it all day." "Good news or bad news?" "Mostly betting against you, but some of the younger Kethmari seem interested in what you are doing. They keep asking questions about human agricultural methods." Jake looked toward the insect aliens' dome structures. "Maybe they understand that growing food is important no matter what species you are." "Maybe." "Oh, and Dr. Barnes wants to see you tomorrow." He seemed angry. The next morning, Jake met with Dr. Barnes in the human engineering section. The older man paced behind his desk, clearly frustrated. "Do you understand what you have done?" Barnes demanded. "You have made humans look primitive in front of the entire galactic research community. I have accepted a challenge to prove that human methods can work." "Human methods? You are playing in dirt while they build terraforming machines. You are making us look like Stone Age farmers." Jake sat down without being invited. Maybe Stone Age farmers knew things that terraforming machines do not. That is exactly the kind of thinking that keeps humanity as junior partners in galactic civilization. We need to prove we can match their technology, not embarrass ourselves with backward techniques. "What if the techniques work?" Barnes stopped, pacing. "They will not work. That soil is dead. Everyone knows it. You will fail, and then I will have to spend months convincing our alien partners that humans are not all primitive farmers." Jake stood up to leave. "Dr. Barnes, what if you are wrong? What if the soil is not dead? Then I will personally eat a handful of your vegetables." Over the next week, Jake planted his seeds in the carefully prepared soil. Potatoes went into the richest sections. Beans followed geometric patterns that would allow them to support each other. Tomatoes occupied the sunny areas where they could grow quickly. Each day, more humans stopped by to watch his progress. Ben Taylor helped every evening after his shift. Amy Rodriguez brought him updates from around the camp. Even Lisa spent her free time helping to water and tend the growing plants. The aliens, meanwhile, continued their important work. The Valorians built crystal machines that hummed with energy. The Kethmari constructed elaborate chemical processors. The Delphins designed aquatic systems that sparkled in their tanks. The Luminar danced overhead, weaving patterns of light that meant something only they understood. But Jake noticed changes in his soil that no one else could see. The bacterial colonies were multiplying rapidly. The dormant fungi had awakened and begun creating networks between plant roots. The rare earth elements in the dirt were being concentrated and made available to growing plants. On day 15 of the challenge, something happened that no one expected. Jake's first potato plants broke through the soil. The tiny green shoots looked fragile and small, but they were unmistakably alive. Ben called Lisa, who called Amy, who told other humans. By evening, a small crowd had gathered around Jake's plot. "They are actually growing," Ben said in amazement. Lisa knelt down and examined the soil around the new plants. "Look at this. The dirt here is darker and richer than it was 2 weeks ago. The bacterial activity has transformed it completely." Dr. Barnes arrived with several other human engineers. He looked at the small green plants and frowned. "A few potato shoots do not prove anything," he said. "Plants can sprout anywhere if you water them enough. The question is whether they can grow to maturity and produce food." Jake nodded. "We will know in 2 weeks." But privately, Jake was more confident than ever. The soil analysis showed bacterial activity levels far beyond what he had expected. The mycorrhizal networks were stronger and more complex than anything he had seen on Earth. The rare earth elements were creating growing conditions that might actually exceed what was possible with synthetic systems. That night, Jake stood alone in his growing field under the alien stars. Around him, tiny green shoots reached toward the sky, fed by soil that everyone had declared dead. In the distance, the research station glowed with the light of advanced technology. But here, in the quiet darkness, the oldest partnership in the universe was beginning again. Plants and soil, bacteria and roots all working together in ways that no machine could replicate. Jake smiled and walked back to his lab. In 2 weeks, he would harvest food that could feed the entire camp. The only question was whether anyone would believe it was possible. Day 22 brought the first crisis. Jake was checking his plants in the early morning when alarms began wailing across the research station. Red warning lights flashed on every building. Over the communication system, a voice announced in multiple languages that all personnel should report to their stations immediately. Ben Taylor came running from the maintenance shed, still pulling on his work jacket. "What is happening?" Jake asked. "Supply ship problem," Ben said, breathing hard. "The cargo vessel that was supposed to arrive yesterday got caught in solar storms. It is carrying replacement parts for the food synthesizers." Jake looked back toward the main complex. "How bad is the situation?" "Bad enough. 3 of our 5 synthesizers are already down for repairs. If we do not get those parts soon, we could have real food shortages." In the camp dining hall, Zixthal addressed the gathered researchers. The crystal alien's body flickered with worried colors as it spoke. "Fellow scientists, we face a temporary supply situation. The cargo vessel UCS Meridian has been delayed by solar radiation storms. Our food production capacity is currently reduced, but not critical." Dr. Carol Price, the human mission commander, stood up. "What is our current food supply status?" "We have approximately 8 days of standard rations remaining," replied one of the fish aliens. "The synthesizers that still function are operating at maximum capacity, but they cannot meet full nutritional requirements for all personnel." Worried conversations broke out across the dining hall. Jake heard complaints in dozens of languages as different species discussed the problem. "Perhaps we should consider evacuation procedures," suggested one of the insect aliens. "Evacuation is premature," Zixthal said firmly. "Valorian engineering will solve this problem. We are already working on temporary solutions using our backup systems." Jake raised his hand. "What about natural food sources?" The dining hall fell silent. Every being turned to look at him. "Natural food sources?" Zixthal's voice carried clear disdain. "You mean your dirt farming experiment? How much food have you produced, Dirt Scratcher? Jake felt heat in his cheeks. The plants are not ready for harvest yet, but in a few days... Few days we may not have, Dr. Barnes interrupted. This is exactly why we need to focus on technological solutions, not primitive farming. Zixthal's crystal body pulsed with dismissive colors. Indeed, while our synthesizers face temporary difficulties, your soil scratching has produced nothing edible. Perhaps this demonstrates the superiority of advanced methods over primitive ones. Jake wanted to argue, but he knew Zixthal was right about the timing. His plants were growing faster than he had ever seen on Earth, but they still needed more time to reach harvest size. As the meeting broke up, Lisa approached him. How long until your crops are ready? 5 days, maybe 6 for full maturity. But Lisa, you should see what is happening in that soil. The growth rates are incredible. Can you harvest anything earlier? Jake thought about his potato plants. Maybe some small potatoes. And the bean plants are already flowering, but not enough to feed the whole camp. That afternoon, the situation grew worse. The 5th synthesizer broke down completely, leaving only one working food production unit for the entire research station. Emergency rations were distributed, but everyone knew they would not last long. Jake spent the evening in his field, checking each plant carefully. The potatoes were swelling. Underground, but still small. The bean pods were forming, but not full. The tomatoes showed fruit, but green and unripe. Ben Taylor found him there after dark. How does it look? Ben asked. Close, but not close enough. Another week and I could feed everyone. But we do not have a week. Ben knelt down and carefully dug around one of the potato plants. What about these? They look pretty big. Jake examined the small potatoes Ben had uncovered. They were only about half the size they should be, but they were definitely edible. We could harvest some of the smaller potatoes, Jake said, and maybe some of the younger bean pods. It would not be much, but it would be something. Better than nothing. They worked through the night, carefully harvesting what they could without damaging the plants that needed more time to grow. By morning, they had filled 3 baskets with small potatoes, young beans, and a few early tomatoes. Jake carried the vegetables to the dining hall where the remaining synthesizer was struggling to feed hundreds of beings. The single machine wheezed and sparked as it tried to work beyond its capacity. What is this? Asked the fish alien operating the food distribution system. Fresh vegetables, Jake said. Grown in the soil behind the waste processing plant. A crowd began to gather. Jake saw wonder and skepticism on human faces. The aliens showed mostly amusement. Zixthal appeared, its crystal body flickering with irritated colors. So the dirt scratcher finally produces something. 3 baskets of weeds to feed hundreds of researchers. These are not weeds, Jake said. These are potatoes, beans, and tomatoes. Real food, grown in soil that everyone said was dead. Dr. Barnes pushed through the crowd and examined the vegetables. They look small and underdeveloped. They are young, but they are nutritious, Jake replied, and there are more growing every day. Lisa picked up one of the potatoes and studied it. Jake, this looks different from Earth potatoes. The skin has a different color. Jake nodded. The rare earth minerals in the soil are being absorbed by the plants. It might actually make them more nutritious than normal vegetables. One of the younger insect aliens clicked forward. May we taste these soil vegetables? Jake looked around the crowd. Everyone was watching him, waiting to see if his dirt farming could actually produce edible food. Of course. They cooked the vegetables in the camp kitchen using simple methods. The potatoes were boiled, the beans steamed, the tomatoes served fresh. Jake had never been more nervous about a meal in his life. The first taste came from Lisa, who bit into a small boiled potato. Her eyes widened. This is amazing. It tastes like potato but richer. More flavor than anything the synthesizers produce. Ben tried a bean pod and nodded enthusiastically. These are good. Really good. One by one, beings from different species tried Jake's vegetables. The reactions were immediate and positive. Even the aliens admitted that the flavor was superior to synthetic food, but Zixthal remained dismissive. Flavor is irrelevant. 3 baskets cannot feed this camp. Your soil experiment remains a failure. This is just the beginning, Jake said. In 3 more days, I will have enough vegetables to feed everyone for a week. 3 days we do not have. Jake looked around at the crowd of beings, all facing potential starvation because their advanced technology had failed them. Then he looked through the dining hall windows toward his field, where plants were growing in soil that everyone had declared worthless. Give me until tomorrow evening, Jake said. Let me show you what that dead dirt can really do. He walked out of the dining hall and headed straight for his field. Behind him, he heard Zixthal telling anyone who would listen that dirt farming could never replace proper technology. But Jake knew something that the crystal alien did not know. The bacterial activity in his soil had reached levels that should not have been possible. The mycorrhizal networks were so advanced they resembled a living computer more than simple fungi. And the rare earth minerals were concentrating in ways that defied everything he had learned about plant biology. That night, working by portable lights, Jake and Ben carefully tended every plant in the field. They harvested every potato that was large enough to eat, every bean pod that had formed, every tomato that showed the first blush of ripeness. As dawn broke on day 28 of the 30-day challenge, Jake looked at his harvest. Basket after basket of vegetables filled his laboratory. More food than he had dared to hope for, grown in soil that every expert had declared dead. The question now was whether anyone would believe what they were seeing. Jake stood before the assembled research station at dawn on day 28. Behind him, tables groaned under the weight of his harvest. Baskets of potatoes, beans, tomatoes, and other vegetables covered every available surface. The food was fresh, colorful, and abundant. The crowd that had gathered was larger than any meeting Jake had ever seen at the station. Every species was represented, from the towering Valorians to the floating Luminar. Humans stood in small groups, some looking hopeful, others embarrassed. Dr. Barnes kept shaking his head in disbelief. Zixthal approached the display tables, its crystal body flickering with confused colors. The alien leader picked up a large potato and examined it carefully. This came from the dead soil behind the waste processors, Zixthal asked. It did, Jake replied. All of it did. The potato in Zixthal's hand was nearly twice the size of a normal Earth potato. Its skin had a slight purple tint from the rare earth minerals it had absorbed. When cut open, the flesh was creamy white with veins of pale gold. How much food is here? Asked Dr. Carol Price. Jake had been calculating all morning. Enough to feed the entire camp for 2 weeks. And this is just the first harvest. The plants are still producing. A murmur of amazement ran through the crowd. The insect aliens clicked in what Jake now recognized as surprise rather than amusement. The fish beings moved their tanks closer to examine the vegetables. Even the light-based Luminar descended to hover just above the tables. One of the younger Kethmari spoke up. May we taste these soil-grown foods? Jake nodded. Please, everyone try them. What followed was unlike anything Jake had experienced. Beings from across the galaxy bit into his vegetables and reacted with wonder. The potatoes were creamy and flavorful. The beans were sweet and tender. The tomatoes burst with juice and taste that no synthesizer had ever produced. These are superior to our artificial nutrition, admitted one of the fish aliens. The flavor complexity is remarkable. The mineral content is exceptional, added a Kethmari scientist after running a quick analysis. These vegetables contain nutrients that our synthesizers cannot replicate. But it was Zixthal's reaction that surprised everyone most. The proud Valorian leader stood silently for several minutes, holding a piece of tomato and staring at Jake's field in the distance. I do not understand, Zixthal finally said. Our scans showed dead soil. Our analysis detected no significant life. How is this possible? Jake walked over to one of his soil samples displayed in a clear container. The life was there all along. It was just dormant, waiting for the right conditions. Lisa stepped forward with her biological analysis equipment. Jake discovered bacterial colonies and fungal networks that had been inactive for possibly thousands of years. When he added water and organic matter, they came back to life. But our sensors, Zixthal began. Your sensors looked for active biological signatures, Jake explained. They did not check for dormant life or complex soil chemistry. The orbital scans missed the most important part of this planet. Dr. Barnes pushed through the crowd carrying a plate with samples of every vegetable. His face showed a mixture of amazement and embarrassment. I owe you an apology, Jake, he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. I was wrong about your methods. This food is not just edible, it is better than anything our technology produces. The crowd began to buzz with excited conversations in dozens of languages. Jake heard the word revolutionary translated into various alien tongues. Several species were already asking questions about learning human agricultural techniques. But Jake was watching Zixthal, who still stood silent among the vegetables. I made an error, the Valorian leader finally announced. The word seemed to cause physical pain. A significant error in judgment. The research station fell completely quiet. I dismissed human agricultural knowledge as primitive, without proper investigation. I allowed technological pride to blind me to natural solutions. The result nearly caused starvation for this entire facility. Zixthal picked up another potato and studied its purple-tinged skin. These vegetables are not just food. They represent a partnership between species and planet that our machines cannot replicate. The human understood something that our advanced sensors could not detect. Jake stepped forward. Zixthal, I would be happy to teach anyone who wants to learn. Soil science is not complicated once you understand the principles. You would share this knowledge? Even after our treatment of you? Jake looked around at the faces watching him. Aliens who had mocked him now listened with respect. Humans who had been embarrassed by his presence now looked proud to be part of his species. Knowledge belongs to everyone, Jake said. Food security belongs to everyone. If we are going to terraform planets and build colonies, we need to work with natural systems, not against them. Over the following days, everything changed at the research station. The Kethmari proved to be eager students of agriculture. Their communal nature made them natural farmers, and they quickly grasped concepts of soil biology and plant care. Within a week, they had established their own experimental plots using Jake's methods. The fish-like dolphins adapted his techniques for aquatic environments, creating underwater gardens that produced both plants and algae for food. Their expertise in water chemistry helped Jake improve his irrigation systems. Even the energy-based luminar contributed by providing precise light wavelengths that accelerated plant growth during the planet's long nights. Ben Taylor became Jake's official assistant, trading his maintenance duties for agricultural work. Amy Rodriguez documented everything, creating training materials that would be sent to other colonies across the galaxy. Dr. Barnes personally requested to join the agricultural team, admitting that he had learned more about sustainable technology from Jake's farm than from years of advanced engineering courses. But the most significant change came from Zixthal. The proud Valorian leader appeared at Jake's field one morning carrying a small shovel and a container of seeds. I have been thinking about our conversation, Zixthal said. You mentioned that knowledge belongs to everyone. I would like to learn. Jake showed the crystal alien how to test soil composition, how to prepare planting beds, and how to care for young plants. Zixthal's forearms made the work easier, and its analytical mind quickly grasped the complex relationships between soil, bacteria, fungi, and plants. This is more sophisticated than I realized, Zixthal admitted while examining mycorrhizal networks under a microscope. These biological systems are as complex as any technology we have developed. More complex, Jake replied. We still do not understand everything about how they work, but we know enough to work with them. 3 months later, the research station had been transformed. Where once there had been barren ground, green fields now stretched between the buildings. Every species had contributed to the agricultural effort, combining their unique abilities with human farming knowledge. The food synthesizers still operated, but now they worked alongside natural food production rather than replacing it. Supply ship delays were no longer critical because the station could feed itself from its own soil. Jake received a message from Earth congratulating him on his success. Similar agricultural programs were being established on colonies throughout Human space. Other species were requesting human agricultural advisors for their own terraforming projects. But Jake was most proud of a small ceremony that took place on a quiet evening as the twin suns set over the transformed landscape. Zixthal stood in its own garden plot, holding a perfectly ripe tomato that it had grown with its own hands. The crystal alien's body glowed with colors Jake had never seen before, colors that Lisa told him meant deep satisfaction and joy. "I have learned something important," Zixthal said to the small group gathered around. "In my language, our ancient word for soil translates to life foundation. We had forgotten this meaning in our pursuit of technological advancement." The Valorian bit into the tomato, juice running down its crystal chin. But this human remembered. He reminded us that the foundation of life is not in our machines, but in our partnership with the worlds that sustain us. Jake looked out over the fields where beings from across the galaxy worked together, tending plants and caring for soil that had once been declared dead. Children from different species played between the rows of vegetables, learning that growing food was both science and art. In the distance, the research station's gleaming buildings still hummed with advanced technology. But now that technology worked in harmony with natural systems rather than trying to replace them. Ben Taylor approached carrying a basket of fresh vegetables for the evening meal. "Not bad for a dirt scratcher," he said with a grin. Jake laughed and picked up his own basket. "Not bad at all." As they walked back toward the dining hall where synthesized food had been replaced by fresh vegetables, Jake reflected on the past months. He had come to this alien world expecting to study soil. Instead, he had discovered that the most advanced civilization still had much to learn from the simple partnership between seeds and earth.